Good afternoon, Tony Dottino here on the 21st of February. It is President's Day, and so lots of sales in the stores and banks and post office deliveries and things closed for that day. But today I was a part of a workshop where people that have been diagnosed with early cognitive impairment participated in a series of interactive exercises that are geared to try to help them either minimize, stop the signs of the progression of that. And so observing the day and the activities of it and how the attendees were able to interact with it really was insightful because it sort of confirms some of the things that we've been learning and research and what we've been talking about on my Live with Tony videos. It also confirms the elements that Michael Dottino has included in his 6 elements of brain fitness. And so I throw it out to my Live with Tony audience. So if you had a group of people that would beginning to start with signs of early dementia, cognitive impairment, what activities do you think they would find to be the most engaging, where they really wanted to participate and really found it to be fun in learning and fun in interaction, fun in being a part of the workshop? And it ties back to what I've been talking about now for the last year and a half or so. And anybody think of what that is? And if you think of it in terms of social interaction, you will have gotten 100, and you hit the bullseye with a 10. When you engage these people in sharing stories about their lives and sharing story about one another, it was amazing. The energy, the laughing, the questions, the dialogue that took place. It was like almost bringing these folks up into a whole different level of where they currently started the day at. And they enjoyed listening to the stories of a civil engineer, a mechanical engineer, an advertising executive for 50 years. It did some amazing things, actually, even with IBM. He took me back to my IBM days in 1969. A surgeon, computer programmers. It's amazing the backgrounds that these people had and their experiences. So the first thing that was insightful is in their introductions, how well they were able to go back and talk about their life stories and things that they had done in the past. But then added to that was how well they asked questions of one another and how they were able to interact and ask questions that just expanded the conversation and the dialogue. It was like storytelling with a group of seniors with what you would not have thought. Listening to them, you wouldn't have thought any of them had any form of impairment. About an hour later, the facilitator of the group came back and asked the different attendees, so what could you tell me about her background? What could you tell me about his background? Does anybody remember what Joe was saying about his experience? And again, the room just kind of lit itself up. And everybody in the room, somewhere, somebody was able to explain what each person's criteria or life experience was that was just uplifting and enlightening. So the sense of their memory and having learned something an hour before was 100% perfect. Now, I am not saying that this is the cure-all for early cognitive impairment. But think of you, if you've ever gone to a workshop anywhere, and you open up the introductions, and I've done this with mind maps as one of the tools in helping people. What are the things in your life that make you happy? Right? And people share that, and it generates a dialogue, and it generates questions and relationships and kind of bonding of people that you wouldn't have thought would bond together. And so what does it tell me? When we talk about one of the elements of social interaction as being a powerful tool that's been challenged with the lockdowns we've had and where people have been reserved and people have been shut down, the question becomes, how do we safely engage any age and any group of people into maintaining some level of social interaction? And as the research has shown over and over again, as humans, we are hardwired to want to be socially interactive. But then you raise the question, so, well, gee, that's not everybody. Everybody's not a social butterfly. Everybody's not an interpersonal expert in terms of relationships and building. But that raises the question to me, well, why not? Where was their life experience that either reinforced them being socially accepted and having self-esteem that made them just want to share things with people, versus where in their life were they kind of smacked or handicapped by sharing what those experiences were? Because what I'll tell you today from the evidence of my observation, these people were just alive. They were just bubbly, laughing, they were joking, they had a great lunch together. When it was time for lunch, they paired up and sat and talked with one another. And one of the most important things that I get from this is the reassurance that social interactions throughout this pandemic, throughout any years of our lives, are vital elements of brain fitness. Now, we took that one step further. Now you think about social interactions. So you get to meet someone. What's the next thing you want to know about a person that you meet? Hello, my name is Tony Datino. Think of me as going, when I leave Florida, I go to New York, which is what the immigrants used to, how the word Tony came from. Immigrants going to New York, they put T-O-N-Y on their foreheads, and that's where the name Tony came from, to New York. And then think of me as somebody has a dot, one of these dots in the middle of my forehead. And I like to play golf, so I have a golf T, T-E-E, on the end of my nose. My last name is T-No. Well, guess what we did as they had their introductions in a later exercise? We asked them, so how would you remember that person? So how would you remember Tony's name? How would you remember Joseph's name? How would you remember Mary's name? And they just loved that exercise. They made up some associations, right? We learn in memory about the importance of links, connections, and associations. It's one of the fundamentals of memory. And they made up some amazing stories. Trying to remember the names and listening to the stories that they made up was just, again, a fun, interactive exercise that brought the room to laughing, that brought them to being very creative. So when you're trying to remember someone's name, it's amazing what you can do with that and how the stories that each person tells are unique. They're not all the same. So when I was looking at a person and making up my story, it was different than what two other people were making up in terms of the names that they were sharing. And we had a blast of fun doing that exercise, which is, again, is a tag from, I want to be socially interactive and I want to feel comfortable, but I want to be able to remember people's names. It's the essence of relationships. So I meet these people and I feel embarrassed if I can't remember their names. So we went around to every person in the room, including the instructors, and we talked about, well, how would you remember Tony's name? How would you remember Joseph's name? How would you remember Elizabeth's name? How would you remember their names the next time you meet them? And we'll test that at the next workshop, and we'll see how well we'll each be able to remember the names of the people that we just met today for the first time when you come back in for the next session of what we're doing with our workshops for these folks, that one would not have thought by the end of the day. It's like, wow, I'm scratching my head at the end of the day and I'm saying, wow, the interactions these people had and the relatives that brought them there was amazing, to when they come back. And I had a couple of the attendees share with their spouse or their loved ones, or mom, in this case it was a daughter picking up mom, tell your husband or tell your wife, or what was the day like for you? And they just lit up. It was like fun. They laughed. They shared some of the stories that came out of the session. And what I can't wait to see now is what will happen come Friday, because they now have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday off, and they're going to come back on Friday. And I can't wait to see how many of the people in the room are going to be able to remember at least 10 of the names that they met and the people they did, and one of the key facts about each of the 10 that were shared during our opening introductions. I am going to find this from the work I've done on memory and links, connections, associations, how to remember people's names, what we've done with the online, the 6 elements of brain fitness. I am going to find this particular workshop extremely interesting, and I see places where to make some really minor changes that really bring more of the science of human thinking and social relationships to the table. That if I want to be real crazy and optimistic about this, I think maybe it'll stop the spread a little bit slower, it'll slow the spread of dementia a little bit quicker. Maybe, I don't know, with all the science I keep reading, we're looking at even how do we get, not only stop it, but how do we reverse it? But by golly, from all I've read and the science reports that I read and what I got to observe today, I've got to tell you, I was most excited. It was the most interesting day that I can spend on the subject of where people so desperately want to be helped. And not only does the person that has the recognition of dementia want to be helped, but their family members want to see some streak of a ray of sunshine that gives them hope for something that may just stop our ability to lose our memories. With that, it's Monday, it's President's Day. I'm not sure if you've done your shopping or you're set for dinners or barbecues or wherever you may be. It was 83 degrees here in sunny Windermere, Florida. And I'll look forward to seeing you back here on Wednesday. And of course, on Friday, I'll give you an update on how our attendees made out in their memory test.